Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the future. With this 2012 Mazda 3 SKYACTIV model, the future is now available in North America. This car carries some core technologies of Mazda's future technology that was developed for introduction next year. Mazda has developed a whole suite of what I would call sweet technology that will take Mazda into the future. And their engineers were given a challenge, basically to look at every aspect of a vehicle and develop new technologies from chassis to suspension to engine to transmission, essentially the whole car, to develop technologies that would take Mazda well into the future. And this technology has worked so well that two of the core technologies have been pulled forward to today. We were supposed to see this technology next year, and the engine technology, the SKYACTIV engine and the SKYACTIV transmission, have been pulled forward, and it's available today. The future is now. Now, before we talk about what SKYACTIV really is, I need to tell you why SKYACTIV. First off, like I said, the engineers in Japan were given this challenge, and they use a word or a phrase in Japan called nobi-nobi, which I guess translates to the sky is the limit. And that's where the word SKYACTIV comes from. And they responded well to the challenge. It was so successful, like I say, these two core technologies are available now. So we're going to talk about what SKYACTIV technology is, but first, let's talk why SKYACTIV. Well, SKYACTIV enables Mazda to combine fuel economy and high performance and low emissions that's accessible to everyone. These components are available separately, but not together. There are some cars, like hybrids, that get good performance and good fuel economy. The technology is very complicated. People don't trust the technology, and it's not available to everyone because it's very expensive. In the old days, you could get performance and fuel economy by high compression. Because if you think about it, let's say you take a spring, and you push that spring halfway down, and you let it go. It's going to jump up so high. Let's say you take the same spring, you push it all the way down, and you let it go. It's going to really jump. And that's basically what high compression is. You take a drop of gasoline, and if you can compress it more than another engine, say, it's going to generate more power. And if one drop of gasoline can generate more power than another drop of gasoline, then it makes sense that the car can go further on that drop of gasoline than the other car, because it's also making more power will move the car further. So if you can get high compression in an engine, you can get more power and more fuel economy, and that's exactly what Mazda's been able to do. But in the past, in the 60s, when high compression engines existed, gas was leaded and octane was 105 octane. Then the government realized we were polluting the air. We had to take the lead out of gasoline, which the octane dropped. That was the end of high compression, and now you have this challenge to make economy with performance, with safety, with emissions, and they all conflict with each other. And so it gets very expensive and very complicated to get fuel economy, and when you do get fuel economy, you really get a car that doesn't perform well at all. It's very anemic, and nobody really wants it. This is the first 40 mile per gallon car worth driving. And so we're going to talk now exactly why or how this high compression was achieved, because it's very interesting. First, they've taken a high compression piston and they found a way to run it on 87 octane fuel. So the premium that you normally have to pay in a Corvette, a Lamborghini, or Ferrari, which also has high compression, it uses some advanced valve timing techniques and it uses high octane fuel. This has some very interesting technology that's not complicated. It's not the kind of technology that you have to fear like the hybrid electrics. They've actually taken the piston and they've put a little scoop out or a volcano type hole in the top of the piston, so when it comes up, the spark, the hot spark, has a place to travel into and dissipate, so it doesn't pre-detonate or try to ignite the fuel when the piston's still coming up. That's one way they prevent it. The other way is, and I want to kind of show you this, a lot of fuel injection, most fuel injection is not direct injection, it's intake port injection. What that means is it's a very cheap and inexpensive way to do it, but what they do is they inject fuel into these intake runners down here, and the fuel has to travel down these intake runner chambers, and it heats up, and it goes into the piston, just kind of a mass of air that's run down these runners. It's not really been directed, and it's heated up, and so it's more likely to pre-detonate, and you can't have high compression. So Mazda decided, rather than inject the air into these runners, they've injected the fuel right into the cylinder. But not only that, even that requires, for high compression, a very even distribution of fuel into the cylinder. So they decided that if we put 6 injectors around the piston, we could really atomize the fuel very evenly to prevent this detonation that typically you have to have high octane gas for. So to do that, they have to up the pressure, because if you took 6 hoses up to 1 spigot and turned them all on, it's just going to dribble out. You'd have to have a lot of pressure to have 6 hoses all with pressure. So they've gone to 2,900 pounds of pressure with the injectors, and so all 6 of these nozzles finally atomize the fuel. You've got the hole in the piston, so you've got all this. It's not complicated, but it's ingenious. So you don't have to worry about it and be scared of it, yet it works. So we've got a high compression engine. Every point of compression gives you about a 3% increase in horsepower. And this is 12 to 1, equal to, like I say, Corvettes and Lamborghinis. And so this engine makes a lot more horsepower than the competition, 155 horsepower, 148 foot-pounds of torque, and the car is amazing to drive. One of the reasons it's amazing to drive is not just the performance of the engine, but the SKYACTIV transmission is an amazing transmission just like the engine. They've taken, once again, concepts that already exist, ingeniously mated them together so you have something that's greater than the sum of the parts. You have something you don't have to worry about. Everybody understands automatic transmissions. You can come to a stop and you don't stall the engine. But a manual transmission, if you come to a stop and you don't push in the clutch, the engine dies. The reason an automatic doesn't is because you have a torque converter, which is basically a blade that spins fluid. And then there's another blade that is spun by that fluid that drives the wheels. So when you come to a stop, this thing can spin in that fluid and not kill the engine. And then when you speed it up, these blades actually spin the blades on the other one, and it drives the rear wheels. And that's how you can stop without killing the engine. But guess what? That's slippage. That's 2 things spinning in fluid and they're slipping and they're wasting fuel. So what Mazda's done is they've made their torque converter pretty much only needed up to 5 miles an hour. After 5 miles an hour, you go into direct plate, double clutch transmission. They lock up in every gear. Basically, it turns into a manual transmission that shifts for itself. So you've got all the advantage of a manual transmission, all the advantage of an automatic. In fact, this is the first time I've ever seen an automatic transmission get better fuel economy than a manual. 40 miles per gallon in the automatic, 39 in the manual. It's basically like saying this really is a manual transmission that shifts itself, and it knows how to shift it better than you do. The great thing about it, when you go into manual mode and start downshifting it and treating it as if it is a manual, which is a great transmission, you have the advantage of being able to shift it manually as well as let it shift itself. It really downshifts when you tell it to. It really feels like a manual, both on the upshifts and the downshifts. So it's an extremely fun car to drive. I've never driven a car of this class, with this kind of performance, this kind of handling, and not just 40 miles per gallon, but you'll notice the expected range is up to 47. So we're going to take one of these cars out, see if we can actually get 47 with it. I think we can. So basically, of all the core technologies, this wonderful suite of what I call sweet technologies that Mazda has developed, the 2 main ones, the engine and transmission, are available right now. So you've got a green car that is red hot, and you've got a car that meets future emissions, one that's fun to drive, one that you're going to be proud to own, and with Mazda's long-term reliability, resale value, and initial quality, fun to drive factor, arguably there's not a better car sold in America today than the Mazda brand, and this is the new benchmark.